We uplift student founders and creators to build social impact. And if you'd like, you can learn more about us at develop.org and on our Facebook group. Also, to plug, we're working on a campaign. We're working on a campaign to provide Filipino students access to tech devices they need for schooling at nostudentleft.com. We would absolutely love for you to join us. Now, to begin, let me introduce the speaker. Alec Wang is currently an honors computer science student at Ateneo and a data intern at First Circle, a fintech startup in the Philippines providing business loans for SMEs. As a business intelligence and data science enthusiast, he has extensive experience working on growth for different startups, on product and engineering at Expedock, product at First Circle, digital marketing at Taikuun, and business development at Exora. Apart from that, he's an Eskwelabs data science bootcamp associate and was also a top 3 Fitch awardee at Stanford University's Asia Pacific Student Entrepreneurship Summit. So he is very much credible. Now, to our audience, feel free to ask questions in the chat or at Slido anonymously. Details on how to access have been pasted in the chat and will be every now and then. We encourage you again to turn on your video, chat casually, and engage. Also, feel free to drop profiles, links, and etc. to connect with each other. Alec, whenever you're ready, please feel free to start.
All right. Hey guys, so thanks so much for coming to my event. I'm really honored to have like this many people sign in and spend an hour of their time just listening to me talk about myself, my career, and like my ideas. So it's definitely a big honor to have all of you here right now. So yeah, this is starting in data science from zero. So let's go. Okay, so before we begin, I'm just going to have some trigger warnings for people who may be a bit sensitive to depictions of violence. It's not going to be anything too crazy, nothing you'll see above like a Peggy 16 rating show. But I just want to be sensitive for everyone out there to, you know, prevent any like psychological damage from happening to anyone out there. So let's start with that. So just a bit about myself. Thanks so much to Ramona for reading out a bit about my profile. On paper, I've taken 5 CS classes, so I'm not the super educated like engineer that my CV may present me as. I'm really just an enthusiast and a bit eccentric with the technology, which is also like my short way of explaining why I'm currently an avatar on Facebook right now. Yeah, I learned everything that I do at work, that I've gotten my jobs with off of Google, talking to friends, doing a bunch of internships, and yeah, that's really just a short a more succinct summary of like my life so far. I've had several internships in the last 3 years. I've been doing internships since graduating high school. I've probably accumulated 3 or more years of work experience just off of these startups. And I mean, I'm highlighting that because that's 3 years of experience in 2 years, because I've held multiple jobs at the same time. Like, so this is cumulative. I love hackathons. I love competing. I love building things in dark rooms where I'm just coding for like hours straight. I'd really love to get a bit more into web development. So that's my way of inviting Kiara for maybe a one-to-one after this to talk more about design and stuff. And yeah, I'm really excited about research and publishing journals. I'm the kind of guy who goes on university department pages and looks up the thesis titles. Like, the reason that exists is for people like me, I guess. So yeah, so the overall theme of my presentation today will be anime-esque, and specifically isekai. So this is Kirito, our stereotypical Chad isekai protagonist, and I feel like he's the embodiment of everything that's a bit wrong about people's perception of data science. So yeah, basically everyone wants to be a Kirito, but we're all probably Subaru. Subaru being the guy with no powers whatsoever, and just living kind of in in a technical nightmare most of the time. So Subaru is a protagonist with no special abilities. He enters the world with no powers whatsoever, and he's actually probably worse off than the average person within the world, because not only does he have no special powers, but he's also illiterate in this world because he can't read the language of the world he was transported into. Kind of like how whenever you enter an analytics company for the first time, you're basically you're basically illiterate again, because everything that they give you, you'll probably have never seen before. It's basically gonna be another language to you. Yeah, he's basically me in my first job. Um, but he does have a special power that makes him really interesting. He's able to come back from the dead at a point every time he dies. And that's kind of the way I've been able to contextualize my own learning journey, in that I've failed so often that I know how to avoid the failures that I've seen through. And that's kind of like really why I identify with Subaru as a protagonist, and why I chose him as the flag boy for what I want you guys as data scientists to be. So yeah, so in the first episode, Subaru is killed by this girl here, this girl named Elsa. He's killed by her at least like 3 times. Spoilers for the first episode, but it's been 4 years. He gets killed by Elsa like two or 3 times before he finally figures out how to not get killed by her and continue on his quest. So yeah, this is kind of representative of like my journey as a high school student going through different internship offers. I was probably rejected, I think, by at least 20 companies before the first small startups kind of accepted me into their analytics programs. So just a few companies that rejected me, like Manulife ghosted me, I think, for at least 3 months. ABS-CBN ghosted me after like 2 weeks. Factset never got back to me at all. AXA was kind of a dead end too. Roblox got me through to the first round, but then I was rejected soon after. So it's like, yeah, I've seen a lot of Subaru-esque deaths in my short career. But that's not even to say that the journey after getting your first job is any easier. After the first episode, Subaru probably is put in situations far worse than the first episode. And in the first episode, he's already kind of dying, so it gets worse than death, really. After my first few forays in failing on my first few jobs, I was able to enter Eskwelabs as their data science bootcamp associate. I was basically the guy who ran operations, getting people who wanted to upskill from non-data science careers into data science careers. So we had a lot of BS Psych graduates. We had a lot of older researchers who wanted to upskill in data science for government jobs. And we also had a lot of fresh grads who just wanted to study a bit more before they entered their first career. So that's a bit of and that's really what helped me contextualize my profile to better fit what data departments are looking for in the Philippines. Like, because I was able to figure out how to get 46 people into data science positions or data teams, I'm pretty sure at that point I was kind of able to figure out how to get myself a data position as well. So that's kind of why I feel I'm a bit uniquely placed, in that I have like a bit of experience in placement offices for data science. Yeah, so data science, like it's not an easy thing. Like, it probably beat me down far more when I entered the bootcamp associate position, because it taught me that you really need to beat your head over and over with these concepts to get that first job. It's not an easy thing to be able to kind of have a wide breadth grasp of all of these positions before you're able to even like get into the HR interviews, before you're even able to like talk to anyone. Because if you don't at least place some of these keywords in your CV, you'll probably get filtered out. So yeah, so some victories and milestones, I guess, in my journey of getting beaten down by the data science industry here in the Philippines. School became really easy because I was able to like school became really easy because I was placing myself at the standard of industry. So like educational challenges, even though they seemed daunting when I was like when my only life experience was high school, it seemed relatively easier. And like working a lot didn't really affect my grades that much. My grades actually went up because the standards of work that I was outputting through my work experience, like probably 2 or 3x the quality of schoolwork I was doing. I was able to get better placements at hackathons just because most of the judges at hackathons are the same people you'd be reporting to at work. So you're able to talk to them a lot better as well. Like you know what they want to see, and you have this common understanding of what needs to be in presentations and builds. I guess one of my greatest honors so far was being able to be fully funded by the Singaporean government to kind of compete abroad in their innovation hackathons. So that was just an interesting thing, I guess. That was also a milestone that came out of this journey that I just enumerated to you guys. So yeah, some of my placements were like, I won the data science hackathon for Ateneo like earlier this year in Feb 2020. Yeah, Startup X, which is funded by Temasek, which is like a subsidiary of the Singaporean like finance and tech committee, like flew me to Singapore to compete with them. By the way, bad decision on their part. I got absolutely destroyed in this competition. ZooHacks, which is the U.S. State Department's yearly hackathon that they have for innovations in conservation and wildlife-related technologies. ACES, which was the Stanford innovation competition as well, and Blue Hacks, which is the yearly Ateneo like hackathon. So generally, like work really helped me get really good at hackathons as well, and that was kind of my positive. Kind of created the positive feedback loop of work making me a better builder in other aspects of my life. So that was the positive outcome of that. My journey in First Circle, that was really my first foray into a big international team. It's kind of misleading to call it a startup just because the office is already like more than 100 people. It's bigger than your typical startup, but not necessarily an MNC yet. But that was really where my growth skyrocketed as a professional and as someone working in an office managing people. Yeah, so the team really in First Circle was able to. So this is like really what I find valuable about internships: the fact that you're able to work with all stars, all-star performers, high-end performers. You're able to see horizons farther than you would have just talking to your professors at school. These are people who've actually accomplished many things in their line of work, people who are world-class performers. And the fact that you're able to get coffee with world-class performers who have done all of these amazing things every day, just kind of like, you know, me seeing myself as an idiot, I was able to kind of learn a bit by osmosis. Like their competence was able to cross the gradient of my incompetence, and I was able to meet them somewhere in the middle. So yeah, Christian San Jose, which was the digital branding manager for Kobe Bryant's digital presence, was the lead designer for First Circle. My current manager actually used to be the head of data in APAC for Uber and Grab, so his coding standard is definitely high. Upper management are investment bankers from Bridgewater and other big investment banking firms, and my direct manager during my first foray in First Circle was actually one of the first product managers in Caliber early on. If you guys know about Caliber, one of the YC startups in the Philippines. So yeah, he grew them from 1,000 users to over 200,000 users, and directly reporting to him was kind of a nightmare as well. So yeah, my next job was at Expedock. That was really my wake-up call. I thought I could. So bridging the gap from working for All Stars to having the expectations of All Stars placed on you is kind of a nightmare as well. So this was kind of a step up from First Circle for sure. And this was really my first experience with a purely technical tech team. So all of these people were builders. They weren't necessarily business people. They were just like build as fast as possible. They're software engineers from like big companies like Facebook, Airbnb, all of the ones here. there was one guy, my direct manager, who worked with Andrew Ng in his startup. Apart from Coursera, I think he was working for Deep Deep DeepMind.ai or something along those lines, and a bunch of AI researchers from Stanford. Basically, it was like there's a natural progression as you work and as you kind of put yourself in a position with high performers. But then, yeah, the higher you step up, the higher they expect you to, the higher the output that they expect from you. Um, this last line still haunts me to this day. That line of PyTest code, I still have nightmares about, to be honest. Like I've seen flashes of it in my dreams. The way my manager reacted, I have never seen someone so angry about one line of unoptimized code. And it's just the next GIF will really encapsulate what I felt that entire 3-month duration. Oh, it's not even that hard. Why can't you figure out how to program in PyTest? It was like it really helped me grow as a data scientist, but some part of me hopes that none of you ever experienced that as well. Anyway, so moving on. So like I'm currently now back at First Circle. While all of this stuff with the virus is happening, I've had a lot of free time to learn on my own. I've had a lot of free time to work remotely for data science for First Circle as a generalist in their data science team. And yeah, just some of the stuff I'm working on right now. I'm going through some basics because online schooling isn't really doing it for me as well right now. And yeah, so I'm working on innovating a few new projects with the data team at First Circle, going through their graph analytics platform. And I reckon we'd be the first company who really has who's trying to build a strong graph analytics like platform here in the Philippines. So that's something cool that I just wanna bring up, I guess. So yeah, I guess the next section after talking about myself for the last, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes would be, you know, what I want to kind of bring to you to like do to emulate or improve upon the model that I've just showed you about what I've done in my life. So yeah. So one of the big takeaways is that not a lot of generally no one in very few people in education, to practically no one, really knows what it takes to become a high performer in the tech industry. Not because they're ignorant, not because they're not equipped, but simply because the internet hasn't been around in the Philippines for very long. Basically, I don't think we appreciate this enough, but the concept of internet in the Philippines has only been around the last 26 years. Anyone who's teaching right now probably was not able to grow up the same way with the same resources of online learning that we were able to. Everyone in administration in the academe went through that generation wherein you actually have to go to the library and get an encyclopedia and all of these very very ancient sounding ways of gathering information and actually working through them. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. All of your parents' advice, it's simply because they didn't have internet until literally 1994, and probably it wasn't accessible to most people until the early 2000s. So just keep that in mind whenever you're getting advice from someone, because you kind of have to figure out one day that compared to the information you have access to, they're kind of from the Stone Age. Not to insult any of them anyway. Not to insult any of them, I mean. So yeah, retrospectives and easy wins. So these were things that I've picked up because of a lot of the limitations I've faced as a self-taught programmer. One of the common things that people ask me when they're getting started is oh, do I need a high-end machine? And to that, I say, you don't need to buy a nice laptop or do any type of purchasing for any high-end machine in the modern day, simply because you have access to thousands of dollars worth of cloud infrastructure at least as a Python coder, just from having a Gmail account. Using Google Colab gives you access to basically gives you access to a laptop unit with I think $5,000 to $10,000 worth of compute power. It's like Google has given you access to a laptop worth $5,000 to $10,000 simply through having a Gmail account. That's kind of amazing. I don't know why more people aren't talking about this. I don't know why they aren't using it in school. Why do we pay so much for laptops at school if you can just use a potato and get $5,000 to $10,000 worth of machine output? But anyways, before I get too excited about that, Kaggle Notebooks is also another good alternative if you don't like Google. Kaggle, I believe, gives you 30 hours worth of high-end compute equipment every month on their notebooks platform. Just kind of I guess it just takes maybe 1 or 2 hours to figure out, but it's really worth it in the long run to get used to programming on the cloud. Here's a link for maybe a small sample contest if you want to figure out or see how far you are along your data journey. If you're able to get a decent placement, I guess with a score below 22 squared, you'd be pretty well set to start applying for first jobs. But then since I'm not exactly sure how far most of you are along your data journey right now, I've kind of laid out this simple progression with links for each of the progressions here in this slide. So this Pastebin has some of the resources that I used personally to get to where I am currently. Yeah, so please do check out this Pastebin link inside of the slide that I sent in the Zoom chat. I'm just gonna pause for 5 seconds, I guess, to let people find the slides and reorient themselves after. Yeah, okay, that was about 5 seconds. Anyway, so another easy win is to kind of orient yourselves with these software tools. I'm not saying learn them and become a master at each of them. I'm just saying knowing that they exist gives you a really easy leg up to impress the people who are going to be interviewing you for your jobs. Because surprise, surprise, your first interviews are going to be by people who are looking for people with these skills, but who don't know these skills themselves. So it's really easy for you to get through that hard filter just by name dropping some of the functions or functionalities of these softwares. So that's a really easy win for you guys right there. This line right here, I'm pretty passionate about. The best data scientists can typically function as a generalist software engineer. The reason for that is because the Philippines is still not specialized enough that data scientists can exist as their own niche without also being their own data engineers. Most of the time, employers are going to expect you to be a data guy end to end, which means being a data engineer, being a data analyst, and being a data scientist if you want to perform like that. So that's one of the reasons why I feel data science in the Philippines really needs you to be more skilled actually than perhaps data science in a more developed country like the United States or San Francisco. You really need a wider breadth of skills just to function as an individual or as a professional, I mean. And yeah, parents and teachers generally don't know best because of this. Mostly because they have no context at all for what is available to you now and what you're going through. Just a funny story. My mom told me to print out my resume, not knowing that these days most companies filter them through an online scanner that searches for keywords. If you printed something, you'd basically just have wasted a line of paper. At least for most of the tech companies that I've talked to so far. Anyway, so yeah. Also really just change your perspective on paying for education. I mean, a lot of people think that getting into tech is this super expensive. Oh, I need so many degrees. I need a master's degree. Give me a PhD to get into the field. But then it's not that bad. It's actually actually this virus kind of gave me an opportunity to really think about and cost analyze what I'm really paying for in my degree. University is so unoptimized for getting you your first job. They actually admit that when this was something I caught during my freshman orientation that I feel not enough people were listening to. Basically, our director was like, oh, Ateneo gives you all of the skills to get your first job, but it's still up to you to get your first job. I'm like, wait a minute, so you're not promising me anything with a degree, really. So why am I trying so hard to maintain your standards if it's still going to be up to me to like maintain my future after? I may as well just like concentrate on the next step rather than working so hard on this step. And yeah, so yeah, that's kind of why I actually like most of what I've learned probably came from Udemy courses or Coursera courses that I've just picked up on the side, aside from my schooling. And yeah, so I mean, if you guys like really want to like change your worldview and eat the red pill, just like try doing some accounting, I guess, for how much you're paying hourly for school versus when you're doing your cost analysis of, oh, is this online course worth it? Should I do this boot camp? Should I do this learning event? You know what I mean? Yeah, so that's kind of all there is for this part of the slides. So yeah, boot camps, online courses, YouTube tutorials. I'll probably add more. I'll probably add a bit more after the session onto the paste bin. Some of my favorite resources to learn and really just more like freebie stuff for you guys to like not have to look for your own courses anymore, because those were really like dozens of hours I've sunk in taking bad courses. Those were hours I wish I'd like have back in my life, and I don't want the 100 of you to go through that. If I was like just me doing that, probably would save the world like 2,000 hours worth of good data science time, and that's a valuable contribution already, I guess. So there's also just like some navigation tips, I guess, for some of these websites to make them like more friendly to you guys, just because onboarding onto any website is probably like the worst experience ever. Udemy courses, they'll all look like they're $200, but then they go on sale maybe like 60% of the time for $10 to $13. So like when you're visiting Udemy and they look really expensive, just like expect that price to go to 10 to 30. Just probably expect that you've just been on the site at the wrong time. Come back maybe a week or two later, the same course will only go for like $10 to $12. It'll be really affordable then. Coursera, you can actually audit courses for free, or if you really want full access. Not a lot of people know this, but you can actually write them a letter and they'll give you full access within 15 days, 15 to 30 days actually. And you don't actually have to like do well in the letter either. I've submitted gibberish once just to see if they actually read the letters. They don't. They just expect that people are so lazy that they wouldn't send a letter, that they just automate the process of anyone who's dedicated enough to send the 150 words required to go through the digital screening process. And yeah, really, like, because all school's online now, what's really the difference between taking an online course and going to university? Like, the cost analysis is even more important now because, well, an online course is indistinguishable really from the university experience. But actually, there's the next slide proves me a bit wrong. So like the real value you get from school probably is your network. But then when you're analyzing this, you kind of need to also like ask yourselves these important questions. Is my network now actually better than it was when I graduated high school, or before I entered this university, or before I did this master's program, or before I did this PhD program, for example? And after answering that question honestly, you need to also ask yourself, like, am I utilizing my network towards my own goals and dreams, or is my network directing me down towards like a certain path that I don't necessarily want, but that society is telling me is important? I know a lot of people in the management sector who are just management trainees because all of their friends picked management when they were doing the course forms in school. Like, your network can help you achieve your dreams, but they can also define your dreams in more significant ways than you'd realize if you're not really looking carefully into it. And yeah, another thing is, like, from my personal experience, because I'm in this small community of students who are really like gung-ho about startups and internships, most people get their first internships from college, family, personal connections. But then a hack that not a lot of people know is that you can kind of email CEOs and annoy them into giving you internships if you really wanted to. I can actually give you guys, actually, he might be a bit mad about this, but I recommend you guys email Paul Revere and Francis Plaza. So email these two people. They right now they love getting emails from gung ho students, but then like don't go too wild on that, guys. Yeah, they've talked about liking it when students email them to get job offers, but then don't go too wild on that, guys. So yeah, here's some red flags though with the advice I just gave you. There's this concept called Hello World Hell, wherein you're just constantly taking introduction courses on these websites and never really get anywhere. Like actually, like do take these courses, but also try to set actual goals, actual progression goals. Like for me, it was hackathons or job offers or projects that I've done. And yeah, try to get out of Hello World Hell as soon as possible. Like do the courses and then move beyond the courses as soon as possible into your first jobs, your first positions, etc. And yeah, so here's the career advice, because I'd imagine some of you are already somewhat in early stages of your data career. So yeah, if any of the previous advice will help you get a data job in the future, I'm really sorry to have put you through that. So a good rule of thumb, I guess, for me would be to build my progression the same way that an organization builds their progression. Because as an organization grows their data capacities, they will also need more and more people. And the longer you're in that company building that capacity with them, like if you maintain the skills that are relevant to the company as they grow their data organization, you're just going to move higher and higher up among leadership within the technical departments. So kind of, I'm not saying these are the job titles you should be seeking, but then they're generally the skills, within these within these titles are what you want to be upskilling for as you do this meta-analysis of the organization you're currently in. So if you're for example, you're super early stage within this tech company, they have no data infrastructure whatsoever. They're probably going to need a software developer or a data engineer to really build out the systems that are going to feed into their backend, are going to feed into like their data warehouses, are going to feed into basically it's building out the platform. Afterwards, they're going to probably need more optimized data infrastructure. Oh, how come I can't do direct analysis from a Postgres SQL database? Like those are the types of questions you'll be asking as a data engineer. Oh, how come my CSVs look so bad? Why isn't my data transformed properly? Then moving up, you're probably going to go through data strategists, like, oh, now we have all of this data. How can we kind of put it to good use? How do we start analyzing, and how do we plan for what data to collect in the future to be more useful for the platform? Afterwards, it's reporting and business intelligence. So it's like, oh, now all of the leadership are going to start basing their business decisions on the data that you collect on a day-to-day basis. Operations are going to start operating more formally with the data that you have, because it's already been kind of vetted by these three processes below. And then only after that do you actually do real like advanced data science. I misspelled ML engineers for some reason. Sorry, guys. Anyway, so yeah, only after all of these steps are done do you actually do any of the real data science. So like I got into data science from here, but actually that's kind of a big mistake, because most of the companies in the Philippines are probably going to be between these two levels right here. Like most companies won't let you do this until they've done all of this below here. And like from what I've seen, even tech companies are still here, basically. First circle is kind of, I guess, in the middle of getting through this and into this, because we're actually starting to do some more advanced like modeling that's going to direct business logic using automated systems already. But yeah, but then that's already like after 2 or 3 years of very, very focused data development work. And really that's how long you should expect from getting from here to here. So yeah, just keep these do expect to have more of these positions over data science in the short term, at least in the next 2 to 5 years in the Philippines, as companies like evolve from needing to plan out their data engineering and governance to actual like for it to be possible for them to even consider accurate modeling. Yeah, that's kind of So that's just kind of a bit of a sober pill for you guys, as before you guys get too gung ho about, oh, which skill I learned first. So yeah, how to improve your job position and organization. So these are just tips as data people in data teams to make it smoother and lubricate your relationship with the other departments. Negotiation culture. When I say negotiation culture, I mean in terms of salary. Like, you don't really see people actively negotiating for higher salaries as they get hired, or actively negotiating for higher salaries during performance reviews. It's not as prevalent here in the Philippines. So that's kind of why salaries may not grow as fast as in other countries, as Indonesia or Malaysia. Like, you expect to be somewhat underpaid because the market generally doesn't have a very good nose for a data team's salary right now. Like, you'll still be paid above average, but you shouldn't expect the same salary as someone working in Malaysia or Indonesia now. It's going to be like immediately 100 to 80, like 80 to 100K starting. It's probably going to look around like 30 to 50, in the 30 to 50 range. If you're somewhat more experienced, it might be like in the 50 to 70 range. But yeah, just keep that in mind, and maybe do change that. Like, get all of your data science friends to all band together and be like, pay us more. Like, that's another way you could look at that line and the advice that it's projecting onto you guys. Another thing that I personally experienced is that traditional data tools like Excel make it really easy for non-technical managers to spin their reports to the upper management for them to look better, because their metrics are directly attached to their compensation. So they really do want to be meddling with their data reports as much as possible. But because you're automating all of that like early on in the data team, they're probably going to like bug you a lot to change the way you report, because it kind of affects their personal bottom line. It doesn't help them, line their personal pockets. It doesn't make them look good. It enforces a truth to come out that they may not necessarily like. And yeah, another big tip that really helped me get get to do what I want in the data teams that I've worked in is to really just give upper management some toys to play around with as an MVP, to get them to approve spending more money on the stuff that you want to be doing. It's kind of like, I don't want to be saying this, but sometimes negotiating with upper management is kind of like negotiating with a child. Like, you actually just need to distract them long enough for you to get what you want from them. It's like, oh, clean your room. I'll give you this candy or this nice dashboard if you clean your room. Yeah, it's a bit offensive to say, but it's kind of true. Yeah, so this is just a comic to let you guys rest a bit after that info dump. It's a pretty accurate description of a lot of data expectations here in the Philippines, at least so far that I've experienced. Yeah, so know when to speak in technical terms and how to summarize things for business people. This is a big tip that I feel not enough data people, especially those coming out of university, know. Like, I've seen business people fall asleep during like the advanced statistic explanations that fresh data people give to them, and I've seen data science team leads get really angry when their junior data scientists just wave away all of the nitty-gritty logic pieces that are going to either make or break the system, and have them redo all of their work and redo the whole report again. The pyramid is really important to know, like, as you're entering the organization, because that's basically going to allow you more of it's going to give you more context towards what the company is doing than the job description, because the job description could say data scientist while they're still at the third level of the pyramid, and it's just more in like knowing where they are in the pyramid will give you a better job description than the job description you're given. So just really like align that with the person interviewing you if you're already like entering companies. Yeah, and align positions and job titles properly with the market. One of the big things that I saw when I was helping the when I was helping in data science placement was the fact that there are a lot of overhyped data science jobs here in the Philippines, wherein they say they want a data scientist, but actually they're hiring more of like a data clerk or a data analyst, someone who will be working with Excel or not even like doing any analysis, but actually just encoding data 8 hours a day. So yeah, tidal inflation for really bad jobs is one of the problems that I hope you guys fix as you go into the world after this talk. So yeah, this is an example of job inflation, I guess. Like everyone's a chief now. Anyways, so yeah, moving forward. Like this is the elephant in the room, deep learning. I think maybe 20 to 30% of you expected me to, I guess, cover this when you saw the title of the talk. So data science, so deep learning is kind of this turtles all the way down situation. It's like, where exactly is the foundation of deep learning that I need to start at? And there really is no clear answer to that. Like you could say learning data science is the foundation of deep learning, but then okay, maybe Python and R, like one layer lower, is the foundation of deep learning. And really, there's no good answer to that. Personally, I would tell you to just like stick on this layer and try to output projects from the Python and R level, and just leave all of the debate about these things like later on after your first few projects. But then like more experienced people have like have really strongly argued against me with regards to this, and really like yeah, no one can agree on what the foundation is and which is the bottom turtle really to as your proper starting point. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't learn deep learning. Deep learning is probably one of the most exciting things about the data science job that you'll have. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit outside of computer science for applications of deep learning. And really, not enough data scientists say this, but then the full value of deep learning to society is when a non-data scientist learns deep learning. So the next slide will, oh wait, sorry. Yeah, so, and the reason why I actually brought up the cloud-based machines earlier in the presentation was because those are already ready for like the highest cutting edge deep learning workloads that you'll probably experience early on in your career, unless you're doing a PhD where you're required to do very experimental research on this stuff. Yeah, so basically what deep learning is on a basic level is on this slide right here. It's the universal approximation theorem, where if you have a linear function pushed into a logistic function, you can get basically any shape if you have enough of them. And that's why it's called deep learning, because it's just layers and layers upon one linear function and one logistic function. So yeah, some of the ways that deep learning has provided value to society when brought to a use case outside of computer science. It's like, this Indian company was able to raise a couple $1 million just a few weeks ago based on their deep learning for dentistry applications. This legal student in NUS was able to write a research paper about how easy it was to classify how easy it was to do paralegal work and classify legal documents using one of the cutting edge language identification models out there. I think he used ULM fit for this. Then there's this one for conservation, understanding which parts of the Amazon are being actively logged illegally using Google satellite images, which, if I'm correct, this competition was able to get 96 to 97% accuracy just from images like 3 years ago. Probably the most cutting edge model would be slightly better than 97%. So I mean, there's that. I mean, that's pretty cool, right? Like saving the world from a satellite in space. That's basically the plot of the Justice League home satellite. So yeah, I'd be remiss to give you guys an introduction to the superpower without the responsibilities of this superpower. With great power comes great responsibility. So these are just some of the examples of how big tech companies have really been using this type of like black box technology to make the world a less good place to live in. Mostly Amazon, Facebook, YouTube. All of these are related to kind of how things can go wrong within the tech world. Um, and I'd want to bring attention especially to these two with regards to deep learning, because they're exactly like the outcomes of when you have a successful deep learning project without knowing why you want it to be successful in the first place. Like these two things, these two terrible things in the world were caused by them actually succeeding within deep learning. Like you wouldn't have these hyper-polarized communities within the world without them succeeding in the metric that they sought out to succeed in. Yeah, basically these algorithms are like money. They magnify values to their logical extremes. If you come in with a metric without really thinking through the cost of success within that metric, a lot of bad things can happen. So No Child Left Behind. This was like before metrics were even were enforced by algorithms. It basically got at the school system by maximizing test scores instead of, for example, student-teacher interactions, teacher kindness. No, only the teachers that have the students with the highest test scores get rewarded. And that's created cases where, for example, teachers are prompted to let their students cheat because their salaries are based on test scores of their students. Play Pumps, which is this charity that was trying to maximize, what is the product that could gain us the most donations for our project? It was this very nicely built water pump for African villages that, while it did maximize like the look for people to donate to, it actually caused a lot of harm in African villages that they were supposed to help. Basically, like they raised $8 to $10 million to make water even less accessible in Africa, which is metrics gone wrong really. And these are just examples that I've linked in the presentation for you guys to maybe check out on your own, of when metrics go wrong and when succeeding in deep learning makes society a less good place to live in. And yeah, so like the reason why I'm doing events like these and trying to get more people actually in data science from Southeast Asia is because of data incomplete problems. So your machine learning models and your deep learning models are only as good as your data set. And there's really a lack of good quality tagged data about Southeast Asians. A lot of the benefits of deep learning probably won't be as beneficial, for example, to Southeast Asians because they have no data about Southeast Asians whatsoever. So the Genome Asia project is because when they were mapping the human genome in the first human genome project for all of the deep learning application that feed into the deep learning applications about the biomedical industry and for example personalized medicine, they were mostly mapping out your males with European ancestry, and I mean there are significant differences within the genome of with those of European ancestry and those of Asian ancestry that could come into play within making experimental medicines. And some of the outputs of this data incompleteness has actually come out already in products in market. So you can see some of the research here, this quick research like page about how good the image classification models for faces are from these companies with these different populations, because so many of the people doing AI research in these companies are white males. Like they were able to tune the model really well for white males, and they weren't really able to catch this facial recognition issue with other demographics, simply because like they wouldn't really think about going through other demographics because the population of like people working on this problem in Microsoft or in Face or in IBM is so homogenized to this particular group. And I mean, it would definitely be a problem if, for example, you put the system in law enforcement and they basically are wrong about dark females are like 35% of the time. That's like a big issue, I feel. Like the best model right now is still wrong 20% of the time. And if you're wrong 20% of the time when you want to implement this stuff in law enforcement, in in like in private companies, that's a big that's a big problem in there. It's kind of a red flag. So yeah, that's kind of all of my presentation this hour. So this is kind of just the groups to join if you guys want to interface with me or the community a bit more after this talk. So Data Presence is kind of this group of data scientists and data people working in the Philippines that I help organize. So yeah, this Kaggle link that I sent a while ago, if you guys want to join our small Kaggle Day competition on July 17th, or you can just like start answering it now actually if you want to. Here's our Discord link if you want to talk to some of the people I linked here below. We got some data scientists from like these companies, even an astrologer, who you can kind of just like hit up if you join this Discord link. EA Philippines is a group of people who really think and talk about these ethics problems that I brought up. If you guys want to interface more with kind of the ethics problems, or if you want to work in like in data science fields with social concerns, do hit us up on the EA Philippines page. And yeah, since I used to work for Eskwelabs, I feel like their data science program is one of the best you can get for its price point right now in the Philippines. And they do let you defer payment until you get your first job. So one of their value propositions is that you can basically like not pay without any interest added onto the tuition fee until like after you get a job, basically. So it's a pretty good like deal cash flow wise and like money wise to do if you're not really doing anything right now and considering studying again to enter data science in a more formal way. So yeah, here I'll just let you guys like ask me a bunch of questions if you want. This is my AMA. And do support season 2 of ReZero, so I have more stock images for the next presentation I give. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alec, for the talk. I just like to applaud like how much like data science is such like an abstract topic for like most people, but the way you were able to break it down in such visual metaphors from the GIFs to the comics you use to make it more understandable for a beginner audience, it's a very like it's like very hard to do, and the fact that you made it like so easily comprehensible, just wow. So from that presentation, the takeaways you can get is that first, when you're starting out, whether it's just learning data science or trying to get your first career, you have to do like lots of research because you need that self-awareness, especially since right now the world is like saturated like so much resources, so on and so forth. So you have to know what's out there so that you can know what to utilize best for your situation. Because of course we all have different situations, learning backgrounds, so on and so forth. So like what Alec recommended, you have to do cost analysis for your degree, the courses you're taking, and the people you're networking, so that you can visualize the direction you're going to, and you know how to take the steps to get into that direction. This also applies to specifically to career as well, when you have, especially in cold emailing, like if you want to get into a company, you have to do that a large amount of research too, so that, because opportunities don't come to, they aren't given to you on a silver platter. You have to go and find them yourself, which is what Alec is recommending. Yeah, that's also to bring you to the second takeaway, going beyond your courses. Because school can only do so much for you. It's only like a surface dive introduction to the field. Hello World won't help you. Exercises won't help you that much. If you really want to develop and grow, you need to work on projects that are more meaningful and provide value to others, so that you can build a solid portfolio that for sure will make you a really valuable asset to hire. And this also applies to taking advantage of outside opportunities like hackathons, internships, so on and so forth, so that you can get an insight on the industry from those who are already leading. And the third takeaway I got is knowing your worth. If you know how to evaluate where your skills are at and what you can bring to the table, it can help you with, say, like negotiating your salary, because you know how much you're getting and whether it aligns with reality. And even if you find out that maybe your title and your job aren't aligned, it's like a problem-solving process. You can dig in deeper to say, oh, why is it unaligned? So that way, when you go into negotiating with your boss, it's like you're pitching to them. If you speak to them with like language and metrics, there you increase the possibility of you getting the position that you want. And finally, the last takeaway I have comes with impact. Especially us Southeast Asians, Filipinos, we need more working in this field of tech, especially data, because we are really underrepresented. And like it's mostly like white people being represented by the data. And if we get to understand this data science, we can make sure that our perspectives matter, and helping out these metrics can increase the impact. Mm-hmm. Thank you. So now we will go on to the Q&A portion. So first question, what is the data science job outlook with regards to demand, the future of data science, and job growth in data science?
Sorry, could you type that question out real quick? I kind of need a bit of time to think about because it's a very loaded question actually.
Okay. Yeah, it's like divided into 3 questions. Give me a moment. I'll read it again. Hello, what is the data science job outlook with regards to demand, the future of data science job, and job growth in data science? Thanks.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, okay. So I'll just answer this question first with a warning. Like my answer is probably going to be really speculative because I feel I don't have, like, I don't think anyone can really predict the future of any like business career, but I'll try to give my answer based on what I'm seeing at least. So the outlook of the demand of data science is probably going to be really high. It's going to be really high moving forward, but there's going to be so much noise with regards to what actually is data science as a job, at least here in the Philippines, because since there's so much title inflation and because the data science career is so hyped, like it could be the demand is really high, but then your employer won't know what to do with you when they hire you. Or it could actually be really high because these companies are just coming in on their own with regards to starting to use the data they've collected to actually make decisions. So there's really just 2 ways to look at it. Like, so there's kind of really 2 ways to look at it. You could say that it's really high because it's actually delivering a lot of money right now, but it also could be really high because there's so much noise and hype about it. So that's kind of the outlook with regards to like its demand. I mean, like society is doing a very good job hyping up data science right now as a career path and as something that your business should look into. But whether these businesses are actually going to, but then the answer towards whether this demand will be there 5 to 10 years from now, or whether these early businesses that are hiring data scientists right now are actually like ready to extract value from them as workers. So that's my answer to that. It's an if. It's an if right now. The future of data science as a job. Well, I mean, I could speculate. I'm assuming maybe 2 to 5 years from now, more companies are going to be ready to extract data, are going to be able to extract value from the data they've collected as their data operations get more and more sophisticated. Like that is one of the things pushing the need for data scientists in the private sector right now. But the future of the data science job is kind of shaky right now because there's a lot of movements towards easier platforms to do data analytics. So for example, They're trying to really automate away a lot of the hard parts of the data analytics process, and even deep learning, like big platforms like Google Cloud Platform, big platforms like Amazon Web Services are trying to automate away the deep learning engineering process of creating a deep learning product and creating something off the shelf that any software engineer could implement into their own product. So if you want to be like super 10 years from now in the future thinking, you could probably work on getting hard to find data and creating like deep learning models off of those, or at least like submitting that as a proposal to your company, because that's really where your niche value as a high-end data scientist will be. Otherwise, you'd just be connecting your company to these online services and being kind of a glorified AWS plumber, basically. So that's kind of like the future of the job itself. And yeah, I guess that answers the third question with regards to growth. It's like, yeah, it's kind of growing in this direction of whether companies are able to extract value now. It's definitely going to grow because companies will get more sophisticated with regard to the data they're collecting. And then the future of the job is dependent on how well AWS or Google are able to automate away the hard parts of the data science job. Because I mean, but on the other hand, there are startups out there that are just white labeling AWS products. So actually, like, I may make it sound bad, but being an AWS plumber actually isn't that bad. It's actually a pretty high-end career as well.
I see. Thank you for that answer. Also, to the audience, if you still want to ask questions, you can drop your question in the Zoom chat or access our Slido link, code 42212. Okay, now I will ask this question from DJ. For those who are starting to learn or study data science, what could be your advice, especially with the technical part of the program?
Oh, well, I mean, I guess you could follow the progression that I put out in one of the slides. The progression in the pace bin is a pretty good place to start. I've actually like experimented with some of my non-technical buddies, seeing like I've used them as guinea pigs to see what is the best path to get non-technical programming people to like a place where they can create decent data science projects. So generally, it's just like get good enough at Python to be able to understand like what Python is and what Python does, and then just start doing the fast AI course as soon as possible. It's kind of like this. It's like, be like Subaru. Every time you find yourself dying in how hard the difficulty is, just rewind your life slightly and like do it from there all over again with the knowledge that you've already seen in the future. Just be like Subaru. Just keep dying and going back into the past and like pushing forward until you're able to get your first data science job and become a full-fledged data scientist.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay, now we have this next question. I sent it to the chat also for you to digest. What is the difference between machine learning, artificial intelligence, and deep learning?
Okay, I could give a very in-depth technical analysis towards like the history of where these words came from, but then I'm just gonna give like a snippy answer right now. If you guys want the technical analysis, I could give it later if people ask. So AI is a buzzword. That's like AI is just a buzzword. It doesn't really mean anything actually. Machine learning is just pattern matching within your data, and then deep learning is like pattern matching, but you don't know what's going on. So yeah, deep learning is like machine learning, but then in machine learning you have more control. In deep learning, it can get you better results, but you lose control. So I'll just type that out actually. Like that's kind of like the high level main difference that actually exists. And fun fact, the reason why they call it AI actually was actually just because of the buzzword. Like when they were trying to figure out machine intelligence in the 60s in Dartmouth, like the reason why they actually called it AI was because they wanted it to be like printable. You know, they wanted it to be presentable to the scientific community. Actually, if you were really thinking about what deep learning and machine learning actually should be called, I'd prefer the term cybernetics because it gives you more insight towards what's actually happening. But then that's just that's a personal preference, and kind of my hate for the term AI is just that's just me venting that emotion.
Thank you for that explanation. The next question comes from Ari. I will send it to you. Is it really worthwhile to still study R for statistics, given that a lot of functionality is available in Python?
That question is actually it depends on the context. So a lot of departments, especially statistics departments and departments doing applications, for example, in biocomputation, are still in R. It really depends on what field you're in and what is kind of the standard in your industry. If the standard in the standard in the software industry, at least right now, is mostly people programming their stuff in Python, but in research, so for example, UC Berkeley requires all of their analytics students to learn R because all of their in-house research is done in R. It really depends on really where you want to go. So like plotting out your trajectory is going to answer that question way better than I can. Because like while you could do the same things, like you're still gonna be working on a team, right? And if your team can't read your code because they're all R users, then why are you still using Python?
Ah, I see. I see. Thank you for breaking it down like that. The next question is actually more of a query. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. It is argued that during the COVID pandemic, data science and AI overpromised but underdelivered. What do you have to say about this?
I mean, it kind of depends on who you were really listening to, I guess, with regards to the people making promises with AI. I mean, within the AI community, it's actually kind of a joke right now, wherein you have these like newbie hype beasts making claims that they can predict the COVID trajectory using like a deep learning model they picked off the internet. So a lot of the noise is just that, it's noise. I can't really say whether or not AI and deep learning have overpromised because, I mean, they are what they are, right? The technologies themselves can't really promise anything more than the communities that are building around them. And I mean, I've seen a lot of decent applications used with regards to machine learning, for example, in controlling and contact tracing, in the United States. Machine learning was able to help significantly, for example, in previous pandemics before COVID even. The Ebola crisis in Africa was mainly tracked using machine learning algorithms that tracked phone patterns for them to be able to control Ebola the way it did. But then when you have this group of people being really hype about data science, but aren't necessarily like good data scientists, and you have this other group of people who are just like really bummed out about COVID, I mean, you're definitely going to have a lot of disappointment when these two groups interact. But yeah, there are a lot of successes though with regards to machine learning and like pandemic prevention if you really look for it.
Okay, thank you so much for that deep insight. Now we have two questions from Richdale and Noah in the Zoom chat. So first, career prospects on data science depend mostly on project portfolio. Given that, how can someone build a project portfolio if he or she lacks previous experience in the field? And what good place to start?
It's actually a big problem that I find. Like the concept of a portfolio in data science is actually quite abstract now, because like how can you just like put an analysis on your portfolio, right? It's not something like software engineering where you can build an end-to-end product really easily. That's why I say that the most successful data scientists end up being people who function as software engineers, because they can build an end-to-end product. And just the fact that they have so many end-to-end products that implement data science here and there, like adds to their legitimacy with regards to like how we view portfolios right now. one advice I could give you, I guess, is just to like have a friend who like software engineering, commit with you with regards to forming a personal project. Another way is to go on Kaggle, but then I really don't recommend this way because you have this group of hyper competitive PhDs like juking out their machine learning models on Kaggle. So actually the people who recommend Kaggle without telling you what you're jumping into aren't really doing you favors either. Yeah, really just like joining the community, talking to people in the community a bit more, doing open source projects with them, doing pro bono work with regards to government data maybe. These are some solid suggestions with regards to gaining yourself some more legitimacy in the data field. Doing really hard courses like the Fast AI course. Like just saying you've been able to accomplish the Fast AI course is kind of this really rare stamp of competence among like machine learning practitioners that weed out 99% of people who really can't cut it. But I really recommend like leaving out 2 or 3 months though if you're gonna go that path, the Fast AI path, because it's a very difficult course if you're going to be doing it and the homework and all of that. It's very difficult. And yeah, so that's just a bit of contextualization with regards to our portfolio. You can also find data sets to do analysis on Kaggle, like just open data sets. But yeah, I mean, there's no best answer for that question.
Thank you so much for that really detailed answer. Now, here's this question from Noah. As someone who dabbled in C and Python, what other programming languages would help me to be optimal at data science work in general?
Oh, by the way, if anyone who thinks that my answers were a bit too abstract or want a bit more detail with regards to the answers I gave, please do feel free to like connect with me on LinkedIn and PM me, or just like find any way to message me whatsoever to get the questions really drilled down, because you know I don't have time to like give you personalized advice because I don't know you people. But I'll try my best, naman. Anyways, so as someone who dabbled on C and Python, well, I mean, it's kind of a weird question to like recommend programming languages in general. I mean, programming languages are just a tool to get you to a certain place. If you can already build an end-to-end product using Python, I mean, go for it. But if you really want like language recommendations to be like a hype beast for data science 10 to 20 years from now, you want to be using the cutting edge language with the fastest compile time, with the fastest matrix calculation like capabilities. I mean, people have been saying that the future of data science in terms of programming languages is Julia or Swift. Stanford, for example, has their applied linear algebra and vectors class in Julia because they see Julia being the future of matrix calculations, which is the general foundation mathematically for data science. But it's a very new language right now, so like that's really if you're going to be like a very future-looking person. I mean, R if you want both the #1 and #2 languages as a data scientist right now. That's another recommendation. And Swift if you're really like if you want to be doing machine learning and data science for iOS devices. Like that's really where you want to be going. I mean, Core ML on Swift is a very powerful tool that lets you create really cool deep learning applications on mobile. But like Swift and but let me just warn you guys again. Swift and Julia are like just things that people think are going to be high end in the next 10 years, but have not necessarily proven themselves in any industry capacity right now. Like you'd be safe actually just building stuff in Python for the next 3 to 5 years.
I see. Thank you so much for that. And thank you also the audience for giving us like, wow, so many like really intriguing questions, especially this one from Jansa. One of the challenges of industries in getting the most value out of data science is that data scientists sometimes lack the business knowledge of the companies they're supporting. What are your thoughts in closing this gap of technical versus business know-how? How are data scientists upskilling themselves in developing business acumen? And on the other hand, would you advise industry experts to learn data science as well?
You know what? I always recommend actually non-data science people learning data science just because they come up with the most interesting applications for data science. So yeah, definitely a big yes on that last part of the question. The next part of the question is like gaining business acumen in general is quite a difficult task. But then for that, I've seen data teams becoming successful when they make individual analysts own data projects end to end. So from metric to operationalizing these things, like owning the whole journey from metric to operationalization is a way to force your data people to understand how the analysis they're doing are going to be impacting their business, and they just kind of either sink or swim in terms of picking up the business acumen when the culture really enforces their responsibility over the metrics. So that's just really how you get business value out of your data scientists. Other than that, I mean, it's just getting them to read more about the business, getting them to attend more business meetings, but then to like a reasonable extent. Otherwise, they're not really doing any analysis. They're just sitting in meetings. But yeah, the general advice there is just having them own metrics end to end and making sure that they're the people operationalizing and talking to the people who are going to be operationalizing these metrics and making the changes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Alec, for enlightening us on this talk. And thank you so much to the audience as well for going here tonight and learning with us. Sorry we couldn't tackle all your questions. We had so many, but if you do want to ask Alec more, you can of course connect to him through LinkedIn so that he can give you specialized answers. If you want to hear more from our Tech Talk series, you can join our community at facebook.com/groups/develop, where we can get the latest updates on our events like this. Right now, we have a screw up night after this, starting in like 10 to 12 minutes. So if you're interested, and just go on there. And if you're inspired by how Alec is talking about using data science for impact, you can volunteer for our campaign to provide digital access to Filipino students at nostudentleft.com/volunteer. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much again, Alec, for this super great talk.
Sure, no problem. I hope I was able to enlighten some people, I guess, and help them early on in pursuing their data journeys.
No, you definitely did. It's insane how much wisdom you have, especially about industry and career. I think the advice you gave is a lot more useful than things I've heard from other people who are like years already into the industry. So this is great. Thank you so much. So Alex, your slides and details are going to be posted on the Facebook event, just so everyone knows. Talk recording will be posted in a few hours, so stay tuned for that. And please feel free to connect with him on LinkedIn and ask him any questions. Sorry we couldn't get to everyone, but we're so happy and overwhelmed with attendance for this talk. Thank you guys for listening in.
Yeah, also if you guys actually want another opinion on the stuff I gave, because a lot of the advice I gave is actually quite contentious,